Hello and welcome to today's episode of Language College. Let's have a look at this strange kind of sentence. When those don't let those out, then those can't let those get in. Seems to be missing something. Let's try the sentence like that. When those who want to get in don't let those out who want to get out, then those who want to get out can't let those who want to get in get in. Still, you have to think about this sentence, but it makes sense. And this is given by this additional information who want to get in and who want to get out. And it's absolutely clear that we're talking about relative sentences today. Our topic today is defining and non-defining relative clauses. What is that? Let's have a look at defining relative clauses. Elephants that love mice are very unusual. Let's try to leave the relative part out. Elephants are very unusual. Make no sense. There is a group of elephants which I'm talking about. And this group of elephants is given by the relative part, that love mice. So this information is necessary and we can't leave the relative sentence out. And this is shown by not putting commas around it. It is called a defining relative clause to define which kind of elephant groups I'm talking about. Same here. I'm going to wear the skirt that I bought in London. Let's try to leave the relative part out. I'm going to wear the skirt. Which one? We don't know. So I have to identify it, define it. That I bought in London. I've only bought one in London, so I'm going to wear that. The man who played the guitar was 40 years old. Imagine we are standing in front of a group of people and I don't know who is the person who's 40 years old. I can identify this person with who played the guitar. It gives us necessary information which person I'm talking about. So, defining relative clauses, in defining relative clauses, you need the relative sentence to identify the subject of the main clause. It's other in non-defining relative clauses. Let's talk about elephants again. Elephants, which are large and gray, can sometimes be found in zoos. The relative part, which are large and gray, is just additional information which is not necessary to identify the subject. Elephants can sometimes be found in zoos. It's absolutely clear what I'm talking about. It's elephants in general. Which are large and gray is just additional information. We can leave it out, and this is shown by putting it in commas which are like brackets. My sister, who lives in France, is coming to stay with me this next week. I already identified my sister, so who lives in France is just additional information. We put it in commas. If I've got two sisters and one is living in France and the other one in Berlin, then it might be a defining relative clause because I want to find out which sister is coming. But here I've only got one sister, so I'll leave it out. The film Blue Moon, which stars Tom Carter, is released on Friday. The information about the film is already given, so which stars Tom Carter is just additional information which we don't need, so we leave it out. My eldest son, whose work takes him all over the world, is in Hong Kong at the moment. We know that we're talking about my eldest son, already identified, so whose work takes him all over the world is just an additional information. We can leave it out and put the relative part in commas. In non-defining relative clauses, the relative sentence gives more information. It is not necessary. You put commas around these sentences. Non-defining relative clauses are sometimes called extra information relative clauses. So you just need to find out, is it extra information, so it's non-defining, or is it necessary information, then it's defining. Let's try that. A woman answered the phone, she couldn't help me. We tried to transfer this to one relative clause. It looks like that. The woman who answered the phone couldn't help me. We don't know which woman I was talking about. The woman couldn't help me. I don't know which woman we're talking about. So the woman who answered the phone couldn't help me. We needed to identify the woman. It's a defining relative clause. We can't put commas around the relative clause. Here are some photos. They show my family. Here are some photos that or which show my family. All the photos are here, show my family, so I don't need to identify it. It is just additional information that they show my family. It's a non-defining relative clause. Look, that is Jane. Her brother is a famous basketball player. Here's the relative clause. Look, that is Jane, whose brother is a famous basketball player. We know that we're talking about Jane. But that her brother is a famous basketball player is just additional information. We can leave it out, so we put it in commas. Yesterday I visited Ulm. I lived there when I was a child. I visited Ulm, where I lived when I was a child. The city is already given. We know what I'm talking about. That I was living there when I was a child is just additional information, so it's a non-defining relative clause. Mother Teresa spent her life caring for the sick and dying. She was born in Skopje. Mother Teresa, who was born in Skopje, spent her life caring for the sick and dying. We're talking about Mother Teresa.